The New Orleans Pelicans and the Portland Trailblazers, a series that I have bounced around on a few times. My initial pick was the Blazers in 6 because I said they're the better team from top to bottom, even if Anthony Davis is the best player in the series. Then I got so caught up in Anthony Davis being the best player that I switched to the Pelicans in 6. But now I think I'm back on Portland in 6, so that's my pick right away. I think the Blazers will win this series in 6 games, and maybe it goes 7, and they'd have home court advantage, so there's that. I mean, if you just start with Anthony Davis, can Portland do anything to slow him down? Potentially, okay. I mean, in my X Factors video, I talked about Nurkic, and I said, sure, Nurkic, I think he's a good defender who sometimes can look pretty bad. And I think a guy like Anthony Davis can make him look bad when it comes to defending pick and rolls, trying to keep the point guard kind of in front of him while also not allowing AD to get a head of steam towards the basket for an alley-oop. I don't expect him to keep up with Anthony Davis at all in transition. Also, I'm assuming that Davis is going to play the majority of this series at center. I know they got Emeka Okafor who comes in there for a little bit, but I mean, we know what the real Pelicans team is. Anthony Davis at the 5 spot, of course. Besides Nurkic, there's Ed Davis, who's a bit more athletic, who can hopefully make AD care. And then there's Aminu, who, from an athletic standpoint, has the best chance, but then if AD gets in the post and he starts doing that runner game with the face-ups and he can shoot over Aminu with the mid-rangers, you know, it's going to take a group effort. I also think we could see, I mean, we're going to see double teaming. That's a given. The guy you help off of if you're Portland would be Rondo. You dare him to shoot. And someone on Reddit actually brought up an interesting idea, which is that you have Nurkic defend Rondo, which means he doesn't defend Rondo. That could work. I mean, Rondo, he can still put the ball on the floor, and I think he'd probably be willing to attack a closeout. I don't know. Rondo he's a very weird player who doesn't like to attack the basket ever, which is why he shoots like 1.5 free throws a game or whatever it is. So maybe you could get away with that. Or maybe he'll just become playoff Rondo, which can I talk? My goodness. I typically don't like to buy into that stuff, but occasionally you might have to, and, you know, playoff Rondo could be a thing. As far as what that means, I don't know. Extra pick and rolls, extra attacking, actually attacking, I don't know. What else? What other Anthony Davis options are there? Are there any other bad shooters on the Pelicans? I mean, there's Darius Miller, he's good. Drew's good. Mirotic is good. Darius Miller's good. They have a decent amount of shooting. But I do think the Blazers' bigs can hopefully do maybe enough. Like, if Anthony Davis has one game in this series where he puts up 21 points instead of 37, then I think you take it. And I think they are good enough to at least do that. Now, if we get to the rest of these, the rest of this whole thing, I mean, how are the Pelicans going to defend Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum? Well, I would assume that Drew will defend one of them. I don't know who. And then Etuan Moore will probably defend the other one of them. Or you could potentially have your wing player, whether it's Ian Clark, Darius Miller, Solomon Hill. I doubt DeAndre Liggins plays at all in this series, but you could have one of those guys defend one of the guards, because they could have a chance. Whenever Rondo's in the game, he needs to be on the wing that's not CJ, so if it's Evan Turner, if it's Pat Connaughton, if Aminu finds himself at small forward, which I doubt happens, then put Rondo on that guy, because if Rondo ends up on one of those two, CJ or Dame, he's just going to get cooked on every single possession. So, yeah. And then as far as how you actually defend Damian Lillard, I mean, you leave Evan Turner open. That's number one. Number two, you hope Aminu misses. And then besides that, Honestly, what might be best for the Blazers is have your wing players screen for Lillard as opposed to your bigs, because I would want to get Anthony Davis involved in not too many pick and rolls. It's a weird thing. Like, I understand the idea of attacking Davis because you want to tire him out and you could potentially get him some fouls. But he's also really good on defense, and it might be better for you to avoid him and just have like wings screen for Lillard, and he can get switches with like Rondo on him, and then he can just go ISO. That might be better for you than actually attacking Anthony Davis. But at the same time, like, it's inevitable that you're going to run screens with your bigs, so we'll just have to see what happens. I assume Anthony Davis is going to be a beast on defense, and he's going to mess some things up. But I also think, you know, there's going to be some benefits to attacking the star player and making him tired and all that stuff. What else can I talk about with this thing? Who are some potential... I mean, I guess I can use the phrase X factors. I already made a video with that. Besides Yusuf Nurkic, who was the one I put in that video. Aminu's three-point shooting is important. Because, I mean, he was good from three pretty much this entire season. He shot like 36, 37%, I believe. And, I mean, I don't think he's that good at like moving threes or threes off the dribble, but standstill threes left open, he's pretty good. I think he's good enough to where you can't just walk off of him all the time. So that's going to be important. For the Pelicans, probably Mirotic. I think Mirotic, actually, I guess you could really go into detail about his situation here, because you assume that Portland is going to defend him with Aminu, right? Because they're similar sizes. Aminu's probably more athletic. And Mirotic is such an odd player. He's been really good to close out the season. He also just shaved, which means nothing, but it also means everything. And he's got some decent isolation skills, so Aminu's going to have to be ready for that stuff. The other thing with Mirotic is, do you ever play him at center? Because Anthony Davis has to sit, like, sometimes. You know, he'll sit for 6 minutes a game. Do you roll with Mirotic at center for those 6 minutes and force Nurkic or Ed Davis or Zach Collins to have to step out on you? Could be a way to get some extra points on the board, you know. The other thing we could look at is, what are these two teams' crunch time fives? Because I think these teams are like decently matched up with one another. I think for crunch time fives, for the Portland, you're looking at Dame, CJ, Nurkic, Aminu, and then probably... I mean, my pick is usually like Pat Connaughton, just because he can shoot, but Evan Turner's worked out pretty okay for them this year. It could also be Shabazz. You just go with a 3-guard lineup. That could be something. Get yourself some more creating ability out there. That one could be interesting too, because you wouldn't be able to hide Rondo as much, because no matter where he was, he'd be on like a ball handler. Unless you wanted to put him on Aminu, which I guess you could try out. And then for the New Orleans, it would probably end up being Anthony Davis, Mirotic, Drew. I would like to see Etuan and then Darius Miller. I don't know if that's the lineup that Alvin Gentry is actually going to go to, but that one just gives you the most shooting. He does like Rondo quite a lot. I kind of disagree, but, you know, whatever. What are you going to do? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think I just come back to Anthony Davis is the best player in this series. I think Portland just has more of the better players, though. Like, Damian Lillard was like maybe the 5th best player in the league this season, and Anthony Davis was like number 3. So, I mean, I don't think there's a drastic difference between the 2 best players in this team. And then, like, the 2nd best player is CJ. Well, no, the 2nd best player is technically Dame. 3rd best is CJ. You could argue that 4th is Nurkic or it's Holiday. I don't know. But, I mean, when you have 2 of the 3 best players in a series, that could be the deciding factor, you know? I guess it's possible that Drew just goes off and makes a whole lot of contested shots and Portland just doesn't totally have someone to defend him. I mean, I assume Lillard would probably defend him a decent amount of the time, maybe not all the time. I mean, Dame's been okay on defense this year. He got better, no doubt. It'll be a fun series. I think there's a lot of elements to it. I do think, ultimately, I just think Portland's got a few more of the better players, and so I would pick them in 6 games, but I went back and forth on it a few times. But that's my pick. Portland in 6. Should be fun. That's it. I'm done.